Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Tonight we're doing a fun episode. We're doing a 7-round Giants mock draft war room style. So it's Nick and I in the war room. We are scouts. I had the Big Ten region. Nick had the Southeast region. And ultimately one of us will be Joe Schoen in each version. But we are the scouts. We pound the table. We'll change our voice for Shane. And I felt like if I'm going to do a war room mock draft and I'm the scout from the Midwest region, I had to bring a trusty companion alongside me. So here he is, Dave Gettleman in the background. I brought Dave out of retirement. He's with me. He's sitting behind me. He's got all sorts of binders, lotion on the desk. He's got binders sitting on the floor. There's binders underneath the desk, binders upon binders upon binders. So I might call on Dave if I need him in the middle of this mock to give me his advice on each pick. And we'll go from there. This will be, a fun draft where we do the war room style, Nick. And so I don't know if you brought anyone with you, but you're a smart guy. You probably don't need any help. I'm gonna tap into Dave though a little bit back here.
I'm glad that we're bringing Dave out of retirement. This is going to be fun. And I laughed my ass off because I was doing some work and setting up the draft. And then I went back into the StreamYard room and all I see is Dan cheesing, huge smile on his face with Dave Gettleman and that lotion bottle sitting behind him. And I just started laughing my ass off. Thought it was hilarious, bro.
Unbelievable. That was the draft. I think that was the COVID year draft. That was what that's
Yeah.
from. He just had binders upon binders on his table. He's got lotion, binders underneath. And then you just see like a shot of like Tom Telesco from the Chargers with like monitors and computers in front of him. It's like, dude, what are you doing, man? It's 2021 at that point, or 2020, whatever it was, but probably 2020. But anyway, no, it's 2021. But anyway, we're back here. We're doing our mock. So Nick is going to run the mock draft simulator from his side, and we're going to talk through all the picks. I won't be able to see the players left on the board. So Nick's going to give a recap of the players who were selected and the players who are left for the Giants, and we're going to talk it through. So here we are, start of round one. Nick, we have simulated the first 24 picks of the 2023 NFL Draft. Tell me who went off the board. Tell me who's left, and who are we going to consider here at 25 overall? Do we want to trade?
So we wanted a situation that wasn't going to be easy. We didn't want a situation where Joey Porter or Deonte Banks was around. And luckily, PFF gave us that. That's the board that we're using. That's the simulator that we're using. And Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Devon Witherspoon, Anthony Richardson, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, Will Levis, Joey Porter, Paris Johnson, Quentin Johnston, Christian Gonzalez, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Deonte Banks, Peter Skoronski, Lucas Van Ness, Darnell Wright, Nolan Smith, Miles Murphy, Broderick Jones, Brian Branch, Dalton Kincaid, Kalijah Cansey, and Zay Flowers are all off the board. Putting Diane and I in is really, I would say, kind of weird spot. Not the best spot. If we want a cornerback, I mean, Emmanuel Forbes is still available. But at the top of PFF's list, you have Brian Bresee, the defensive lineman out of Clemson. I think you could go in that direction. I don't think it's the sexiest pick. I think there's a little bit of prognostication when it comes to a player like that, a little bit of baggage in terms of the injuries that he dealt with. You have the tackle, Anton Harrison. We're going to eliminate him. Bijan is still around. Will McDonald, Michael Mayer, Jordan Addison, which I definitely think is in consideration, Mozzie Smith, BJ Ojolari, Diane Henley for Dan, Cam Smith. So you have a solid group of players here. Nobody that I feel like I would be head over heels in love with. We have to run this to the podium type of selection, but it's you and I in the war. We're making the decisions for this football team right now. And unfortunately, Dan, there are no trades. Usually you click on this trade and they have trades that are being pitched to you and people who are interested in that pick. We don't have any, but we could still explore making a trade. We just might need to give up a little bit more, which I do not love.
Yeah, I don't love that either. And usually, if no one's looking to trade, maybe no one was in the market for Hendon Hooker or whoever else they felt like had fell there. Nick, give me a rundown of the corners left on the board, because we wanted corner. We went into this draft in our pre-draft discussion the night before the draft, and we said we really want corner in round one, you and I. And ultimately, we were playing scout and GM here. So we can shift it a bit, but I don't really have a Joe Schoen impression. He's a pretty normal guy. When we tap into Dave back there, I'll give you a couple Gettlemans, but let's see who's on the board here at corner.
Yeah, it's Emmanuel Forbes, Cam Smith, Tyreek Stevenson from Miami, Julius Brents from Kansas State, Garrett Williams from Syracuse, DJ Turner from Michigan, Keely Ringo from Georgia, and Clark Phillips from Utah. And those are the ones that I feel like can at least be somewhat in the conversation, even though some of those guys definitely shouldn't be entertained at 25.
For sure. How about wide receiver? What do we have left?
At wide receiver, we have Jordan Addison. We have, let me remove the corners, Jalen Hyatt. We have Michael Wilson, Tank Dell, Josh Downs, Cedric Tillman, A.T. Perry, Marvin Mims, Tyler Scott, Jaden Reed.
Okay. So I'm going to make the case. I'm not going to pound the table for this player, Nick, but I'm going to make the case for this player, and I'm going to see where you're at with it. And that player is Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame here. Now, listen, when it comes to Mayer, there's not a lot of flash in his game so far. Wasn't a great combine. Nobody's given him pre-draft buzz. But you finally start watching Michael Mayer, and you see that this dude is aggressive as hell as a blocker. He loves blocking. He's talked about how much he loves blocking, and it shows. The grades are great from a blocking standpoint, and the frame is there. He has the actual frame to be a good blocker. It's not just some dude who's going to grade out well as a blocker from PFF against college players. Nope. When he gets to the NFL level, that frame is going to make him a potential weapon as a blocker. You also have a player who I think can fit really well what Daniel Jones does best, which is get the ball out underneath fast in the short intermediate range, over the middle sometimes against zone coverage, because he faces a lot of zone coverage, Daniel Jones, until there's a reason for defense to stop playing zone against Daniel Jones. They're not going to stop playing zone against Daniel Jones. So I just think he can be the zone beater for us. I understand we already have Daniel Bellinger on the roster. He's a long-term play. Understand we have Darren Waller on the roster. We've diverted some of that money. We've pushed some of it back. And he, in some senses, is more of a long-term play, 2-year. What's going to happen in year one, right? If you draft a player like Michael Mayer here, I understand all of those concerns, but at the same time here, I'm thinking about my franchise long-term. And for me, Nick, he is by far and away the best player left on my board. I have a top 10-ish, top 15-ish grade on this player. I know I'm higher than most on this player. So that's my case for Michael Mayer. Any consideration based on that?
I like Michael Mayer a lot. So I am considering where you're going. If you could see what I'm doing on the screen, I have been on the phone. I tried contacting the Packers, didn't love what they had left. I could drop down 20 spots, pick up the 78th pick, but they didn't even seem that interested, which was somewhat disrespectful in my opinion. And then I went to the Jets, and I realized the Jets had the 42nd and the 43rd pick. I'd be willing to give them 25 for that, and also throw in one of those, the fourth round pick that the Giants have. They didn't seem interested in that either. So I'm just like, crap. I'm trying to think of tight end needy teams. Not that the Jets really are, but the Packers went with Skoronski in the first round in this scenario. I would imagine they would be jumping at this type of opportunity, but according to PFF, they're not. But Michael Mayer, I like where your head's at, Dan. I do. And I think in terms of pure value, other than Bijan Robinson, he would be my highest graded player. So now it just comes to, with the Giants acquiring Darren Waller, with them having Daniel Bellinger, who we love, is it really the most prudent move to go tight end, even though he is one of our top options right here?
I think the answer to that is fair to say no to that. And I think it's a bit of a stretch to take a tight end. It's a position they backed themselves into when they made that Waller trade. Personally, that's how I feel, at least, because I had a feeling there was going to be talent at tight end at 25 that might be the BPA if the draft falls this way. We're also obviously hoping that one of those corners falls. It's not impossible. So let's get to some more options that I think we could narrow this down to. Wait a second, actually. Dave's calling me from the back. Dave said, what's that, Dave? Hey there, Schneier. There's no we got the quarterback here settled. We've got the quarterback, but one thing, we don't have enough hog mollies for him. There's a guy at TCU, Steve Avila. Reminds me a lot of that Will Hernandez fella. Think he's a bigger, better version of that Will Hernandez fella. Can I tell you, we got to take the Steve Avila guy up top. We got to build a hog like Dave, calm down, Dave. Don't touch that lotion. Do not touch that bottle of lotion, Dave. He's very excited about Steve Avila. Nick, should we consider Steve Avila here?
I don't know if the listeners are going to love this podcast, but I'm enjoying it. So I hope everyone's aware of that. I think if we're going to go interior offensive line, we should go with O'Cyrus Torrence. And admittedly, I have not watched him extensively. Everything I've heard about him is it's all positive.
Not as good in the phone booth, Nick. Sorry, that was Dave. Dave, calm down back there.
Just calm down, Dave. All right, you're getting ridiculous right now, Dave. No, but I hear just him in the phone booth is pretty great in terms of his power at the point of attack. I think Avila, we could possibly wait to select him. But the thing I like about Avila over Torrence is he has significant snaps at center, and they're pretty freaking valuable snaps at center. But if we go in that direction, if we go with any of these guys, and just for instance, we're sitting here at pick 25, John Michael Schmitz, Joe Tippmann, Whippler, they're all still on the board. I need to find a way to trade down if I'm going to make that selection, in my opinion. I want to get more value, and I think I would rather sit here and take either Emmanuel Forbes or Jordan Addison at pick 25 rather than kind of jump to one of these interior offensive linemen. And I wish I had a little bit more tape on Torrence. That's on me. I just haven't, like Brandon, the guy I'm doing a lot of the scouting with, he took Florida's offense, so I haven't really watched them. But I think that is where I'm at, Dan, and I want to hear your opinion on it.
No, I'm with you. I'm not seriously, and I know some Giants fans have approached the topic with us or with me and you separately, and I think it's a fair topic to consider going one of these elite guards. And I don't actually have as high, I don't like Avila as much as Torrance, but to go with one of these elite guards here, and with the same idea of, look, we wanted the same people who are saying this are saying we wanted center there, but I know you don't love the grades on the centers as much. Well, do you have a really high grade on Torrance? If the answer is yes, do you have a really high grade on Torrance? It may be worth to take at 25 overall because guards are more valuable. They can play both sides of the ball. They can maybe play center, so they have 3 position type eligibility or at least potential flexibility versus a JMS John Michael Schmitz who's just going to play center, in my opinion. And also, it's a very high floor style pick. You do what you say you wanted to do, Dan and Nick, which is build from the inside out, offensive line over skill positions, offensive line always over skill positions. You're doing all these things. But the problem for me is I haven't watched enough Torrance, Nick. And so all I can go off of is what I've heard from Cy, who loves him, what I've seen from the grades. I love the character, and I love the idea that he could have come out last year, Nick, but he decided to transfer anyway to Florida to play against SEC level competition. I just get so scared, Nick. And I know Cy said on our last podcast it doesn't really matter to him as much. But, dude, when you have a 23-inch vertical, it's just so insanely bad. Yeah. I'm just like, is this dude going to translate athletically to the next level? And the broad wasn't good either. It wasn't nearly as bad, but it was not good. And that vert is just 23. I think there's a chance you can jump more than 23 inches on the vertical, Nick. I know I
easily
can.
I know
you easily could. You're more athletic than me. I know I can't, but I don't know I can't. I think it's possible. But it just, look, I don't want to make too much about these jumps. I don't want to make too much about these testing, but it's some kind of weird wart in his profile for me, Nick, where it's like, if I'm going guard or center in the first round, I don't want any warts. I want 0 warts. The only wart I want is like a Tyler Linderbaum wart that I had last year. Like, is he going to be big enough to play in power gap scheme? Is he going to be big enough against the Dexter Lawrence types? Like, that was literally the only wart for a player like that. So I don't know. I don't love the Torrance pick here. Let's narrow it down though. I think unless you want to bang the table for Torrance.
No, I do not want to bang the table for Torrance right now. But
Sorry,
I'll say this,
Dave,
man.
We're not going to Villa, buddy.
I'm pissed. I'm pissed that nobody is trading up for Michael Mayer and Bijan Robinson, 2 players who I feel like we should be getting some sort of attention for. I'm leaning towards Jordan Addison for a couple different reasons. We know the Giants want wide receivers, and I get it. I don't think he is a true number 1, but I still think there is a ton of value specifically in this offense that disperses the football all over the place and adding a quote unquote good number 2 wide receiver. And I think he could operate as the number 2 in this offense behind Darren Waller. Look, the Giants don't have anybody other than Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton under contract beyond this season. That's important. And what does Jordan Addison do? Is he the burner that Jalen Hyatt is? No, but he creates separation because he knows how to run routes. He was productive at 2 separate schools, and I know he had 2 different quarterbacks. And if Zay Flowers was on the board, I think I would go Zay Flowers over Jordan Addison. But I still think Jordan Addison would really fit in well with what Kafka and Dable, what they do on offense. My one thing is, if we go with Jordan Addison here, all that value that we can get later at the wide receiver position, we might look to go in another direction. So as somebody who isn't in love with going wide receiver 25, I mean, I have said that. I'm in this situation, and I've gone with Emmanuel Forbes in this spot several different times, and I'm fine with that as well. But I am trying to be a little bit different, and I don't think I would be pissed if the Giants went with a Jordan Addison here. It's just not my first choice all the time. But in this scenario, this is a little bit tough right now. So you're looking at Brian Bresee, Jordan Addison, Emmanuel Forbes, and then what, like Mozzie Smith, if you want to add another defensive lineman, a little bit of a nose. We already have Dex. We don't really need that, but he's still talented. You need depth up there up front, and he could also start in base. So I'm kind of leaning towards Jordan Addison, man.
Hold on a second. I just heard something from back there. What was that? Oh, my God. You got Dave so excited when you said Mozzie Smith. This dude wants Mozzie Smith so bad now. He's pissed you didn't give him Villa, but he wants Mozzie. Calm down, Dave. We got a long way to go. Just chill out. You'll get your guys at the end. But, Nick, for me, I love the case you just put out there for Jordan Addison. It's the pros and cons side of the case. Unfortunately for me, the con side outweighs the pros for 2 main reasons. The first being the value, this thing you talked about. If I take a wide receiver now, I'm not going to have my opportunity to scoop up value in rounds 2 and 3, where I know there's going to be so much value at wide receiver, because we're probably not going to see the Giants go with two wide receivers with their first 2 or 3 picks. This is a team that has way too many needs, and they're not really in a luxury spot where they can go 2 receivers in their first 3 picks. So if I take Addison here, I need to make sure he's by far and away the best player on the board for me, because I'm losing that value later, or damn close, or at least up there with Brian Bresee and Emmanuel Forbes. And I'm not so sure I can confidently say that. He's 173 pounds. His production went down at USC, which I thought was odd. Watching more and more USC, I just find it very odd that he wasn't this like massive target commander over there. I don't love his vertical profile at the NFL level. I liked it at the collegiate level. I don't love it at the NFL level. If Zay Flowers was on the board, that would be my pick here. I like Zay Flowers a lot more than I like Jordan Addison, but I do like Addison. But I wonder where he can line up at 173 pounds. Is it just the slot? If it is just the slot, what happens to Wan'Dale Robinson, right? We know what Paris Campbell's already, but that's a one-year thing. But what happens to Wan'Dale Robinson? And so I think I'm going to make the move here to say, let's narrow it down to Bresee and Forbes if you're okay with that.
I am okay with that, but I just got a phone call from the Pittsburgh Steelers. 1 minute left, and we offered a trade, and I want to know what your thoughts are. And the YouTube audience are probably like, what the hell are you talking about, Nick? But bear with me here. The Giants could trade their 89th pick in the 25th to drop to 32. So the first pick in the second round, because there's only 31 picks, grab 49, and also get 120.
49, 32, and 120. We lose 89 and 25.
Yes.
I feel like we don't get great value out of that for some reason.
You're dropping back 7 slots from 25 to 32.
And 49 is pretty good, I think.
49 is excellent in my opinion, because you just gain 49 and then you jump. Then you drop back from 89 to 120.
The biggest thing there is you lose 89. But you know what?
But you also can just consider it's 40 picks ahead from 49 to 89.
Right.
The way I was looking at
it. Is there any way we can take out 89 and put in like the 4th and the 5th? And they're not going to want that, right?
No, I think this is it has to go through like this, Dan.
Okay. Because I was going to say I would take out their 100 whatever pick and take out our 89 and try to work in whatever I can. But you're right. They need something back. You know what? I'm in this deal if you are, Nick, because I think we can still get Forbes at 32.
And that's the thought. And let's see. Oh, Forbes got sniped by the Chiefs, DeJuan Jones by the Eagles, BJ Ojulari by the Saints, Jordan Addison by the Bengals, Brian Bresee by the Bills, Will McDonald by the Cowboys, and then Bijan by the Steelers, which I don't know what the hell you're doing, Pittsburgh, but holy crap. So now we are
terrible for us.
This did not go great.
Terrible for us.
It did not go great.
Here. Now we're here. We've made our bed. We need to sleep in it.
So I have a player that I was thinking about pitching at 25, and now I feel even more comfortable about it at 32.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to like it, though.
Uh-oh.
That is Adetomiwa Adebawore.
I don't dislike that at all. I think there's a lot of upside with that. I think that you can make the case that Adebawore versus Bresee is closer than it seems, because Bresee was the higher recruit, blah, blah, blah. Adebawore, the more I think about his profile, the more I like it. I like how raw he is. I like that he had wasted snaps as an edge rusher when he should have been playing a 3-tech type role the whole time. I love the traits. I think the traits are better than Bresee's traits. The get off to me is really his defining trait from what I've seen of him. Just that quick get off with all the power behind it, with all the explosion and acceleration behind it. He would be an interior guy for me, but for now, he would be maybe the long-term replacement for a Leonard Williams. But for now, he'd be what we talked about on previous podcasts with Kalijah Kancey. He'd be the guy that Wink finds one-on-ones for on third downs or passing downs. And at times, Nick, I think he could even operate, since he did play some end of line of scrimmage at Northwestern. He could operate in the Jihad Ward role potentially at times. I don't know if he can drop back in coverage, but Jihad Ward can. Why can't he? He's faster. He's more athletic. He's bigger, but he's more athletic. So I really like this call by you, Nick. Let me just ask you, Michael Mayer still on the board?
He is, yes.
Jesus Christ. These people are what do people think is going on with Mayer? Like, he's already an unreal blocker. He has the frame, and he's going to eat up intermediate. I guess people are just they don't see the flash. They don't see the speed with this guy. I don't get it, man. I mean, when he broke out as a freshman and he beat out Tommy Tremble, who was drafted in the 3rd round, that was should have been enough for people to see, like, this dude looks like a man among boys as a freshman. What does that tell you at 19 years old? I don't know. But look, we've ruled him out already. I'm fine with it. So is there anyone else in consideration besides Adebawore?
Yeah, so we have Adebawore, like we said. I think Cam Smith could be in consideration, and then Osiris Torrance, Mozzie Smith. I know, Dave, but Jack Campbell's still around, but I'm not really going in that direction. I like the idea of Adebawore. Look, I only had like access to a couple of his games when I did his evaluation, and then I got more of his tape, and I watched like the Maryland game, and I saw some of these other games. I was like, dude, this guy has like crazy movement skills. And we talk so often about Kalijah Kancey, rightfully so. And I think Kalijah Kancey is much more of a technician with his hands and how he employs his pass rushing moves and how he sets tackles up and does all those different things. Kalijah Kancey also played in a very deep Pitt rotation in terms of just having other draftable talent. Whereas Adebawore, man, there's no one else on that Northwestern defense other than Cameron Mitchell, a cornerback, but in terms of pass rushing, there's no one else on that defense that's really going to be a focal point for offenses to focus on. Whereas Double A Battery, I think is what people are calling him. He was, man. And his combine was just as impressive as Kalijah Kancey, if not more, considering the fact that he is heavier. He's a little bit bigger. And the guy has like 34-inch arms with like 10.5-inch hands. Ran a 7.133 cone, which is pretty good for this guy. A 37.5 vert, a 10.5 broad. I mean, 4.49 in the 40 at that size. That's freaking gigantic. And I do think he's going to fit that positionless type of defense where you can do so many different things with him in terms of lining him on the edge, that Jihad Ward role, and also lining him inside. So when I got access to a little bit more of his tape, I appreciate it. And I know our listener, Elaine, would love this because he's been calling him his guy for about a month now. And once I went back to his tape, I did realize that I think I like him more than I originally saw. And I think there's a lot there.
Planet Theory winner, long arms, great wingspan, powerful hands, explosive, fast, can flip the hips. Who does that kind of remind you of? Who worked out really well for the Giants?
He's not that tall. This guy's only about 6'1", so
right.
he's not JPP.
Besides the length. No, I was talking about Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence flipped the hips. Dexter Lawrence had he's not quite at that level because he's 6'1". You're right. He's not that same. But if he can learn this position well enough, he could win with leverage in a different way than Dexter Lawrence wins because of that, lack of supposed height or whatever it may be. You know what, Nick? I've come around a long way to the interior guys, man, through my years, especially the interior guys like this who have pass rushing profile upside. Dexter Lawrence was not the greatest pass rusher at Clemson, except for his freshman year. Now he's the best pass rushing D tackle besides Aaron Donald in the NFL. You can evolve as a player. It could take 3-4 years, but things you can't teach are those traits. This is a Planet Theory winner, and let's make the pick. I'm in.
Well, I say we do this too because I think it also sets up the rest of the draft well. So I think there's going to be corners and wide receivers that we're going to like a little bit later on that we can select. At edge, there might be some guys, but I really think the upside with this player, with this specific coaching staff, it makes sense.
I want him on my interior, Nick. But again, you're right. With this coaching staff, we can use them all over.
Yes. So we're going to select him here at pick 32 after a trade down. Michael Mayer finally went off the board. So now we are sitting at pick 49 that we acquired from the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have some trades.
We have another pick here, Nick.
Oh, I know. This is awesome. So Drew Sanders just came off the board. The Patriots went with Tanner McKee, which is hilarious. Okay. Diane Henley is off the board. So let's see who's available. And then we can go and maybe explore. I say we do explore some of these trades. Some of the guys who are available: Tyreek Stevenson, Julius Brents, Garrett Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Isaiah Foskey, John Michael Schmitz, which I feel like is important. DJ Turner, which I'm really liking as well. Chandler Zavala, if we're looking for the offensive line. Keely Ringo is still available. So we have some big heavy hitters. Jalen Hyatt, if you wanted to go wide receiver. Trenton Simpson. So there's a couple different directions we can go here.
I'm really happy we traded back and acquired this pick now, Nick, because, at first it seemed bad because we lost the guys we were considering, Breze and Forbes, but I do like Adebawore enough. I like the upside, and now we have so many guys I like with this pick. So do you have an early narrow list? I have an early wish list out of this. Let me hear yours first.
I don't have an early wish list. I think there are certain players that I'm willing to have a conversation with you about, but I kind of want to know your wish list, and then I'll base mine off that.
My wish list starts number 1 here with DJ Turner, the cornerback out of Michigan. Look, DJ Turner, 4.26 speed testing time that actually looks like 4.26 speed when you watch him. He does not lose on the vertical plane. That gives, in my opinion, Wink Martindale the opportunity to just line his ass up on the outside, on the boundary, take away safeties, use them however you want, and don't worry about getting beat deep from this against this kid. And then you look at the 10-yard split, which actually somehow is more impressive than his 4.26 40 time. I think it was 1.46 or 1.48 10-yard split, which is like another like groundbreaking, record-breaking type thing for an actual corner with good tape. And it shows as well on tape. His ability to click and close, his ability to react, to go downhill. It shows up in a run game on those quick hitting screens, even though obviously he's not the biggest player, and he can get mossed, if you want to say, at the catch point, and he can get pushed around at, in the intermediate in breaking type stuff. But you're talking about a guy for me that the ceiling is you put him on an island and he's reacting to everything that's thrown quick around the line of scrimmage with that unbelievable 10-yard split and that quick acceleration. He's not getting beat on the vertical plane. And worst case scenario for me here, Nick, I move him into nickel, and now I have the best slot corner in the NFL potentially.
I think that's where his skill set is probably maximized, is in the nickel spot. And I am going to be honest, I'm scared about DJ Turner aligning across from like AJ Brown and these more physical.
You would take him. You have to be a matchup based corner. Like if you had a team like the Eagles, you'd have to then put him against Devontae Smith.
I think he fits the system very well. He can play man coverage, right? He sticks right on you. He's right in the hip pocket. He might not be the most physical guy in the world, has ball skills. So I like the idea of it, and that's definitely up there at one of the top, I would say, options right now. I think Kelee Ringo could be considered. I still see the tightness in terms of his ability to flip his hips and move laterally, which is something that I just feel like could be exploited on these deep horizontal crosses when you run so much man coverage. So I'm a little bit hesitant to go with a Kelee Ringo right there. I look at center though, dude, and I know you're not going to love this, but I have to bring up John Michael Schmitz at this point of the draft.
No, he's in the conversation for sure. It's not that I don't love him. We're at 49 now. Like I'm good at taking him in the 50 to 60 range, which is basically we're there.
Yeah, so I would be cool with that. I do look down the board, and there are some other interior offensive linemen that I feel like the Giants could add later on. We have a bunch of picks later on in the draft. So do we want to allocate 49 to John Michael Schmitz? Look, I'm okay with it personally, but I do also want to add some corner help. I think you got to explore the wide receiver position as well. And we sit here, Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman are both still here, as is Marvin Mims, Tyler Scott, a little bit early for that. But those are also some players that I feel like we could consider to help Daniel Jones and help the explosive nature of the Giants offense.
Yeah, I think with the receivers, for me, Nick, I see enough talent that I like there that I think there's a better chance those guys are going to be there 57 than maybe a John Michael Schmitz would be or a DJ Turner. Now, obviously, Julius Brent is in the mix as well. I just feel like looking at his tape, I'm a scout here. I don't love the fit for Giants defense right now. I would rather him in a different kind of system, off coverage, Fangio principle, something like that. So I know where I'm at with this, Nick. What are the trades? Let's see what we got on the trade on the table.
Okay, well, this is trade might not be accepted. It's saying, but it said that about the Pittsburgh one, and it ended up getting accepted. And I was like, oh, so it is pick 49. So we trade this pick for 65, 73, and 104. And I don't know if they'll accept this, but we could try it. But I got to run it past you before I actually do it.
So for me, Nick, where I'm at right now, I would rather make sure I get Turner or Schmitz with the chance to get both if we stay at 49 and 57. We already just picked up extra picks from the first trade down. We already started this draft with too many picks in my mind, 10. I don't think all these guys can make the roster. I don't want to add 2 more picks to the mix. Now we have to consider cutting players who are talented or cutting former veterans who have earned the right based on special teams play and things of that nature. So for me, the value's solid there. But I think I would prefer at this point to take a guy here. And if one of our guys goes off the board or we don't like what's there at 57, then we consider trading back.
I'm right there with you. And I think with that, I'm looking at the teams that pick before we pick at 57. You have the Buccaneers, the Dolphins. The Dolphins could possibly go center. Seattle could go center. That's concerning. The Bears could go center. They could also go corner. The Chargers could go corner, but I believe they went Brian Branch earlier. I don't know if this PFF board is smart enough to to weigh that kind of stuff, but I mean, they could realistically go with both too. the Jags, they can go center, and then the Lions. So those are the teams that we have to worry about. It seems like there's a lot of worry about the center position, but I'm kind of right there with you that I do want to go DJ Turner. The thing is, if we don't get Whippler or Michael Schmitz at 57, if we don't think they're going to be around,
Pittman not around?
If they're not around, like I do feel like we'll get I feel like we'll get a corner at 57 that we will appreciate, like a Clark Phillips. We could go with Ringo,
I don't know Clark Phillips nearly as much as you do, but yes. I don't even shouldn't say as much as you do. I don't really know your opinion on Clark Phillips, but not my guy, really.
I'm fine with him at 57. I think that's somewhat
I like the ball
fair.
skills, but
yeah,
no, it's okay.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Julius Brents could be around, maybe Tyreek Stevenson, but I'm okay. I think
Stevenson is intriguing. I forgot he was still on the board.
Yeah. I think I'm cool with going DJ Turner. I think he's more consistent from what I've seen from Tyreek Stevenson.
You almost convinced me there to go John Michael Schmitz here because
Turner,
I have a better chance of, I feel like there's more corner depth here.
I agree with that. Yeah. I'm just saying, if you wanted to go Turner, I'm okay with it. I think the more prudent choice, if we want to lock down center, is to get John Michael Schmitz now. We could always get Oluwatimi a little bit later on in the draft and Alex Forsyth a little bit later on in the draft, just because I don't think PFF is going to value those guys that high.
Don't count out my boy Braden Daniels, Cody Mock.
Yes, exactly. Players like that. So that's one reason why I'm like DJ Turner. But I'm also, I think if we're looking at those two positions specifically right now, which I don't think we should be doing, we should be exploring everything. Then I do think we should probably get JMS here. But if we do explore
other positions, right? Like we've looked at wide receiver, but we like the talent gap. We like the depth of talent there. I don't think we need to go there. I think for me, it comes down to DJ Turner is a much surer profile for me than John Michael Schmitz, which I know people will find. Okay, let me rephrase that. He's not a sure profile. John Michael Schmitz is a sure bet for what he's going to be, but I just don't know that what John Michael Schmitz gives to your team is ever going to be that interesting or that moving or that changing the game or that, oh my God, this guy changes everything for us. With Turner, I feel like we might have a game-changing type talent at corner potentially. You don't find many corners who are 4.26 athletes, and it shows. You don't find many corners who have 1.48 splits on the 10-yard and can actually move that fast when breaking that downhill on click and close type plays. John Michael Schmitz, I've seen players like him. Like for me, it's tough. Like I draft so differently, I think, than needs-based drafting, that to me, this would be Turner because I like him so much more than the rest of these corners personally. But needs-wise and predicting what the next teams are going to do wise, it probably makes more sense to go John Michael Schmitz. So I will leave the final decision up to you on this one, Nick, because Dave back here is pounding the table for go hit IDL, please. Go hit the IDL button.
Okay. Siaki Ika.
Oh yeah. Ika, bro, he loves Ika. Fucking put him right in the middle of that defense. Now we got insurance for Dexter Lawrence if he holds out. And oh my God, he's pounding the table back here for Siaki Ika. He wanted Avila. He's pissed you didn't get him Avila, who might still be on the board. We don't know. And if he is, he's obviously banging the table again for him. But yeah. So don't worry, Dave. You'll get your picks later in the draft. We will give you like a late round pick potentially, but it's up to you, man. You can go John Michael Schmitz here, or you can go Turner. But I liked our process for narrowing it down, and I like where we're at as far as being informed and making this decision.
I think I'm going to go with John Michael Schmitz and see who else is available at corner later, because Joe Tippmann went to Seattle, who is picking between us, by the way. So they shouldn't double up on center. But I think I'm going to lean with
John. Came off the board. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's just Whippler and JMS who are around. And I think Shane would be smart here if he was in this situation, if he did value center this way, to be like, look, the run is starting. Let's get ahead of it and get one of those players who are in the tier that is the first tier. If he has JMS in the first tier, by all accounts, it seems like he does. So I am going to go with JMS here, reevaluate at 57 and see what we're what exactly we're doing. I do think it's very important to shore up the interior offensive line, and we really don't have a long-term solution right now at any interior line spot. I mean, I hope Azudu is. We really do, but I can't say that with any sort of certainty. So I'm going JMS.
Okay. I like it.
It's a good process, though, man. DJ Turner went to, dude, we said it, the Chargers. Chargers are just building a
That's
freaking
the type of team that would
secondary.
take DJ Turner too. They snagged the hell out of Asante Samuel Jr. My thing with corners are when their main knock is their height, I just know I'm getting value. I feel like all the time I get value from Asante Samuel Jr. to the kid L'Jarius Sneed to all these corners over the years that we hear. Oh, the one thing is they don't have height. It's like, can they cover? Can they play man coverage? Yes. Okay. Put them on my team.
This is okay to me, though, okay? Because Jahmyr Gibbs went to the Bucks, then Tua Pelotu went to the Dolphins at 51. 52 was Tank Dell. 53 was Keely Ringo. 54, DJ Turner. Siaki Ika at 55, which makes sense to the Detroit Lions. And then Foskey from Notre Dame went at 56. So now we're sitting here at 57, and there's still corners that I love. Tyreek Stevenson is still here. Julius Brents is still here from Kansas State, which I'm definitely leaning in that direction. There's also trade backs with reasonable draft capital. The Eagles are actually offering us a trade, and I think it's just dropping back a couple picks to like the 60s, because there's players like Quan Martin Jartavis Quan Martin from Illinois that I just don't feel like enough people are talking about right now. And I kind of been pounding this drum since like January or whenever the hell I watched this tape, because he's just a freak athlete who is one of the better tackling players in all of college football. You just don't see that, especially how versatile he was. And I know he kind of came out of nowhere this year, but like that's a player that I'm really interested in. So if we could figure out a way to get another pick between 57 and 120, I think I'd be a happy camper. So I might explore that, but let me read some of the other names that are available.
I think we need to strongly consider that after losing our 89th pick, and that's where I'm leaning to. But obviously, if we're going to stay here, I would want to explore wide receiver as well, what's left at that position. But I would say the first and most important thing is we got to get on the clock with these teams and see what we can get in a trade, because you're right. The thing is, I like what we did to start, right? Adebawore and John Michael Schmitz. We built the trenches out, which is most important. We always talk about this, Nick, you and I. We don't always adhere to it, but we like to talk about it. And it's true. You try your best to adhere to it. Build inside out. That means build the trenches out. Build your offensive line, build your defensive line, build the guys that win at the point of attack. Most of NFL is won anyway at the point of attack. A lot of times these quarterbacks don't have time. Players are disrupted by pressure. And on the flip side of it, you can generate different things by having strong trenches. So I like what we did there. But the only thing I don't like is we've now gone 2 picks without a corner or a receiver, Nick, or a safety, if you want to consider Quan Martin that, but I think he could play slot corner, whatever, we'll see. We've gone 2 picks without a corner or a wide receiver, which we know we really need, and we lost our 89th pick in the process. So, and that's the range, like this range from this pick, Nick, to 89 or so is where I want to find my wide receivers and my corners, and I'd like to get one of each if I can. So let's see what we got on the trade. First of all, does that logic check out with you?
Yes, it does check out. And there's really one trade that I'm looking at that I feel like makes sense. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles. We drop back from 57 to 62 and we just pick up 94.
57 to 62, pick up 94. I'm in.
Okay. Well, they might not be, but I have they were not in, but I'm going to
one of our 7th round picks in or something.
I was actually going to throw in Matt Parrott.
Oh no, don't throw in Matt Parrott. I'd rather give away a 6th or a 7th.
Really? You think Stoutland University can fix this guy?
No, I'd rather have, I still think there's a tiny bit of hope for Matt Parrott. I think these 6th round picks are junk for the most, but anything 6-7 range is junk for the most part.
Okay. So I'm going to try.
If it doesn't move the needle, we'll try to put in a Purd or something.
Okay. So I'm going to try 57 and 254 for 62 and not a full. And we only have 3 attempts remaining. Howie's getting a little bit impatient with us right now. If I give them Parrott, it's a slam dunk.
All right.
Or I can give him Big Roy too. I can give him Big Roy.
No, give him Parrott. We're giving up on Parrott. Now I'll say this though. We give up on Parrott now. We got to figure we might need to take a developmental tackle at the end of this draft.
You know what? It's a very good point. I do think it adds another level to this. Okay. I do want 94 though. Parrott is entering the last year of his deal, right?
Yeah.
We still have Tyree Phillips on the roster. So I'm okay with this. You good?
Okay. Yeah, do it.
They accepted. We get 62 and 94. We're going to resume the draft. And now we're back here at the back end of round 2. And these are the players who went off the board. Tyreek Stevenson, Felix Onyeudike-Uzomah, Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson from TCU, Garrett Williams from Syracuse, Darnell Washington from Georgia. So the Eagles traded up for Tyreek Stevenson. And now I'm sitting here at 62, bro. We could trade back again, but I'm not going to. I look at Julius Brents, who is still around. I love that idea. Jalen Hyatt is still around at this
Wow.
point of the draft, which is something that I'm definitely willing to entertain. If we wanted to go with like a Zach Charbonnet, he's there. I'm not leaning that way. Cody Mock, if we want another interior offensive lineman, but we did draft John Michael Schmitz. So I love Julius Brent staring us in the face at 62. I think the value is just way too good right here for a freak athlete with that type of size, who I do believe he can play a man coverage system, even though it's probably not his ideal defense. I still think he can fit.
I think he can fit as well. I think we got to keep reminding ourselves and whoever's listening, like, it's not like we're just playing 100% man coverage out there. Like, Wink Martin uses zone defense too as well. Like, this is not a 100% man coverage style. No one runs that in the NFL, I don't think, but I don't know that for sure. Give me an idea of what's left at receiver, because I might make the case for a player who I haven't been high on at all really in this process, in Jalen Hyatt. What's the top of that
honestly,
board?
dude, we have a lot of players still around. So Michael Wilson, Rashee Rice from SMU, okay, Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee, Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, A.T. Perry from Wake Forest, Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, Kayshon Boutte from LSU, Tyler Scott from Cincinnati, Jaden Reed from Michigan State, Trey Palmer from Nebraska, Parker Washington from Penn State, Jonathan Mingo, who PFF is really low on, is still around too, Xavier Hutchinson, who I think the Giants are going to be interested in, Charlie Jones. I just feel like there's a lot of value at wide receiver that we can wait on.
There's value at wide receiver, but there's only two players who add something to the Giants offense right now that they don't have, which is the speed profile, and that's Jalen Hyatt and Marvin Mims. Now, Hyatt is not a player either of us are very high on because we're just so concerned with some of the things in his profile. For example, less than 70 snaps against press coverage, 89% of his snaps in the slot. A lot of those snaps that were in the slot, he was in the stack. He was the behind receiver in a stack. Doesn't look very physical at the catch point. Has an alarmingly uncreative profile after the catch. Alarmingly. But at the same time, tracks the ball incredibly well vertically. Gets vertical. Probably has better game speed than tested speed, which was 4.4 flat. I think it's probably better. The way he separates on the vertical plane is pretty impressive. Two, something you mentioned, which I think is true, catches away from frame a good amount, and just generally speaking, has pretty good hands at the catch point. Jalen Hyatt, that is. Can break down pretty well, I think, on the comeback routes. At 60, like, I don't want him at 25, but at 62, there's a chance that Hyatt right now gives us something that no one else gives. Like, Julius Brents is the first lean for me, right, Nick? I like Julius Brents. I like how it sets us up because then we can get the wide receiver later. But I think there's a better chance that Hyatt is actually not a bust versus the chance that Brents is a bust, if that makes sense, even though Hyatt has all that bust factor in his profile. I just think when you're one of those rare athletes from a movement standpoint, both from a smoothness and acceleration and a long speed standpoint, gives you a better chance. But it's tough. It's really tough. For me, it is definitely down to these two, though.
It's down to these two. I'm going to go with Julius Brents. Like, me personally, I do love your reasoning with Jalen Hyatt. I think some of those other receivers that the Giants have expressed interest in, a la Marvin Mims, and there's no guarantee that he'll be there at 94.
I love Marvin Mims, by the way.
Yeah, his deep ability is you could argue it's just as impressive as Jalen Hyatt's. I know it's hard to say that, but
his profile is better.
Exactly. Look at what Marvin Mims did as a true freshman at Oklahoma. And then he's just had trash around him for the last 2 years. So if he was in the same situation as Jalen Hyatt, you might be talking about Marvin Mims in a much more, in a much better light, right? So I think that's one argument against that. But again, you don't know if he'll be available.
Him in the mix too, by the way, Nick, because I think I would make the case that I would be fine taking him over Hyatt. I think Hyatt maybe has a better ceiling, higher ceiling, but Mims, if I push game to shove, gun to your head, I'm actually curious to your take on this. Who would you take, Mims or Hyatt?
I think I would take Jalen Hyatt, but it's close, man.
It is close, man. And
I do like Marvin Mims.
Me too. I love.
It's a lot
Mims.
closer.
I don't care.
So it really just comes down to how we feel about some of these, because you have guys like Darius Rush a little bit later on. He's relatively new to the cornerback position. I didn't love his tape, but he was a wide receiver before, so he is a little bit new, and he has the long traits and the athletic ability and all that. It's just Julius Brents is a player that I feel like comfortable selecting in the second round. Yeah. The guy has a freaking ridiculous 3-cone. He's long as hell. The vertical speed is one thing that, like, I didn't love. Quentin Johnston exposed him a little bit during that second TCU game specifically, and also drew a couple holding penalties against Brents. But I think, man, he could be like the Jimmy Smith for this defense for Wink Martindale.
I like that call. I like everything about this if we go this direction. Again, vertical speed. Only thing really concerns me. There's not the only thing, though. The only thing that really concerns me even more than that, Nick, is if I can avoid it, Nick, I don't really want receivers and corners out of the Big 12. I know I don't want, I've spoken before about don't helmet scout, but helmet scouting and conference scouting just seems a little different. Not seems, is different. And I'm not the type of person who's not going to conference scout a little bit. There's so many busts out of the Big 12 at corner and wide receiver over the years. They just don't work for the most part. Corner, a few more success stories for sure than receiver. Receiver is a disaster. Like Corey Coleman out of that Art Briles system, man, that was just an epic failure, right? Like just as epic as it gets. And that's what scares me a little bit with Hyatt anyway, by the way. But I think Brent's can escape that. And I think corner, I feel a little more comfortable than receiver. So I just wanted to voice that concern as a scout in the room. But let me say this, Nick, I'm on board with it. Let's take Julius Brents.
Yeah, man. I mean, another thing about Brents, and we'll do that. This was somebody who was at Iowa for a little bit, but Iowa's Iowa, and they're freaking weird, and they just like leave talented players on their bench. And Brents, to me, like fits that system perfectly in terms of like the zone defense that they run.
Right.
But for whatever reason, he wasn't getting the playing time, so we transferred to Kansas State, and he wasn't really targeted all that often. Like they didn't like really hack him. You know what I mean? So with his freak profile, I feel comfortable at this point of the draft to go in that direction. And honestly, I would entertain Jartavius Martin too if we wanted to get
I forgot about him. I would entertain that too. Shit.
I was hoping that he would be available a little bit later, but I'm also cool to insert him into this discussion right now because Brents will not be available later. But I know we want corners, but Jartavius Martin, he's more of a slot, and he could be a free safety. He could be a strong. He could do so many different things for you.
So
and
much.
62 is okay with me too. But can we get him at 94?
More than okay with me at 62. Shit, this makes it tough. Let's go Brents, though. I like Jartavius Martin a lot. It would actually be between those two. But I like Brents' profile enough, and I think we need more bodies on the outside at corner.
I agree with that. So we're at pick 94 now. Since all the trades that we ended up doing, it looks like a lot of players went off the board. A lot of players that we like, Jartavius Martin being one of them who was off the board. Derek Hall, Chandler Zavala, Trenton Simpson, who was around, who I meant to bring up, but I forgot. Going to get fired for that one. Clark Phillips, Darius Rush, Nick Herbig off the board. So now we're sitting here. No one wants to trade with us. Top guys on PFF's boards are Anthony Johnson Jr. out of Iowa State, Isaiah McGuire, the Missouri edge, more of an even front guy, Jamie Robinson, safety out of Florida State, Dwayne McBride, Tank Bigsby out of Auburn, KJ Henry. So Kendry Miller.
Receivers all gone. Click the receiver tab. What happened here to us?
I think
people
Marvin
are going to hate us.
Still around. No, Marvin Mims is still around, dude.
Okay, this for me would be a snap pick.
Yes, I want to look around a little bit.
We can look around a little bit. I have Marvin Mims personally as a top 50, top 60 type player in this class. I love Marvin Mims. I don't want to spoil too much because he's going to be one of my guys, but for me, it's going to be tough to come off of him here, but let's look around and let's see what's there. I'll say this. Jamie Robinson, I think it's actually Jamie he goes by. I was recently heard someone talking about him on a podcast. So even though it's spelled Jamie, I am intrigued by him and what he would be in this Wink Martindale defense. Obviously, the ridiculously slow 40 time has people so concerned. But box safety, I really feel like one thing that was missing from the Giants last year, even with Julian Love, who, again, wore a lot of hats, had the mental side down, filled solidly. I just feel like having that oomph, that guy who can fill and bring pop to the defense and drive downhill with aggressiveness, acceleration, and speed is so necessary for this Wink Martindale defense. Can play a little linebacker, hybrid linebacker, safety. So he's someone who's intrigued me throughout this whole process, and we haven't talked about him, so I just want to bring that up here. I would never take him over Marvin Mims, so not worth discussing for me right now.
This is Marvin Mims for me as well.
It has to be, right?
Yep. Ask Dave.
Dave? Oh, Dave's not taking Marvin Mims. It's Dave back here. Thought for a second you're talking about Cy. We just on the pocket. No. Dave said, show me the interior offensive line tab. Listen, no, he actually said this. He said, you know what? Thinking about it more, Nick Filato. He's a quarterback. He played quarterback at one point at FDU, that Nick Filato. He's a good kid. Thinking about it more, we like our offensive line more than you do. All right? We like our offensive line a lot more than you do. And I got to tell you something. I didn't like the trade for Darren Waller. I don't know what Joe Shane was doing there. But Kyle Rudolph is still on the waiver wire right now. Kyle Rudolph, I think, is still a free agent, as long as I know. So we will be talking with Kyle Rudolph after the draft, I think. So just don't worry about tight end. Kyle Rudolph coming into the mix. All right. All right. That was Dave.
You're silly. All right. We're going to go with Marvin Mims.
Let's do it. All right. Let's recap.
I love this, by the way. Yeah. Okay, so this PFF doesn't give you, at least to my knowledge, doesn't show you the pick. I go to analysis and it doesn't really do that.
No, it doesn't give you crap. You have to remember, but I think I can remember it. We have Adebawore, Adebawore first round after trading back our second round, first pick of second round. John Michael Schmitz. So we got interior defensive line / edge and Adebawore. John Michael Schmitz center only for me, center. Then Julius Brents, we love, play corner. And then Marvin Mims at wide receiver.
Yeah, and I'm going to write all these down too, just so we have it. And I know at the end they show us a collective, but now we're sitting here at pick 120, and we have another pick and 8 picks at 128. I am happy with the draft through the first 2 days.
I love this draft so far.
Yes, we got an explosive wide receiver threat. We got a long outside cornerback who has pretty damn good athletic ability overall. You got your center for hopefully the next 10 years, and you added a very versatile front 7 player who's going to be edge, interior defensive line, who I really think this coaching staff could unlock, and he has a ton of upside. So you're really shoring up edge a little bit more than defensive line. I still think we could use a defensive lineman. I think we can use a safety. I think we can use a running back. I think you could still add a wide receiver at some point. So those are some of the positions that and then obviously linebacker too. Those are some of the positions that are on my mind heading into day 3.
Yep, I feel the same way.
Alrighty, so looking at who is available, you still got Anthony Johnson, Jalen Jones from cornerback out of Texas A&M, Sean Tucker.
What pick are we at?
Rated halfback. We are at pick 120. Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State is still around. Jair Brown, safety out of Penn State. Trey Palmer, the wide receiver out of Nebraska. Christopher Smith, the safety out of Georgia. Parker Washington, the wide receiver out of Penn State. So we have a decent amount. I'm going to try to Caillou Blue Kelly, the cornerback out of Stanford. Zach Evans, the halfback out of Mississippi. I don't know why I said halfback. Oluwatimi is still around. Chase Brown, I know you like. Keaton Mitchell, they're still around as well. Jonathan Mingo is still around, which seems to me almost like a cheat, because I would probably do that in real life, but it's like I doubt Jonathan Mingo.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Nick. I don't love what I've seen. I haven't seen enough though. So
honestly, man, I get he's in Lane Kiffin's offense, and he didn't really have all that much production until this past season, which I don't even think he broke 1,000 yards in this past season.
No, he didn't.
But when you're 6'2", 220 pounds, and you have good vertical speed. Like I liked him when he opened up his stride. I feel like, he had long legs and covered a lot of ground. Like I appreciate his game in that. And he is physical, and he was used at all 3 levels of the field. I just think there's something there that you can, that can be grown by Mike Groh, by the Giants coach staff. I don't know if he is the type of receiver they're going to be looking for. He seemed to, find space and stuff like that, but Lane Kiffin's offense isn't exactly Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll's offense, so maybe not. But at this point of the draft, it does seem
no, it'd be a slam dunk here. I don't think we should make it too unfair, and it's too stupid, and he's just not going to be there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, he's somebody
that second first round discussion that I hear him in now.
Yes, yeah. So Riley Moss is still around. Running back wise,
I like Riley Moss.
So do I. I mean, that's
what do you think about Riley Moss converting to safety?
I've discussed this on the podcast before. I considered it, and then I watched him get his soul stolen from him by Chase Brown at the Senior Bowl, and it kind of soured me out. It was bad. He got killed. Do you remember DeMonte Casey from the Falcons, who ended up being on Dallas? I think he was drafted by the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, I remember one time he met Ezekiel Elliott at the goal line and broke his collarbone, and I was always like, oh my God, that's got to be the worst feeling as a defender, right? You go to meet a running back and he just embarrasses you, scores a touchdown, and you break your collarbone. Oh, dude, it's the worst situation ever.
Okay, so we won't go that direction then. Where do we at on interior offensive line? Because I could consider a guard here if there's a guard I like.
Yeah, so we have Andrew Voorhees, who has a torn ACL, so I'm probably going to eliminate that. Antonio Mafi is around. Emil Ikior is around. I know Jarrett Patterson, Ricky Stromberg, John Gaines, who they have. We could get him in the 7th round, just the game.
They hate John Gaines in the simulator.
Alex Forsythe as well. So it sucks that
What about tackle, where we can maybe convert to guard?
Well, we did lose Matt Parrott. Honestly, Jordan McFadden and Braden Daniels are both still around. And both of those guys I'm interested in terms of converting to guard. I know Cy spoke highly about Jordan McFadden. I heard Emory Hunt also speak highly on him. I saw one play by him while I was watching. I can't remember exactly who I was watching, but he got ran over at tackle, and it was like, oh, geez. But that's just one play that I'm basing this off. I haven't evaluated his film. But I know you're high on Braden Daniels.
I am.
So how do you want to – we could wait on that more than likely. I hate that we kind of know that, but I am willing to consider a tackle since we did trade Matt Parrott.
Yeah, or one of these guys. You mentioned McFadden and Braden Daniels, who are tackles technically, but we would most likely convert them to the inside. I like the idea of investing more in the interior offensive line right now. What are some of the other options we can consider here?
Henry To'oTo'o from Alabama is still around, who I know you have spoken highly of as well. Ricky Hickman.
And not that I want to make sure that make it clear. I'm not that high on him. I just feel like he could be like a better version of anything we had at it on the inside last year, but I don't see much of a ceiling. And you know me, I don't love going non-ceiling picks on day 3. So I think I'm going to take him off the board for me.
And then there's one player that at this point of the draft, I'm definitely willing to entertain, and that's Zach Kuntz, the tight end out of Old Dominion. Zach Kuntz, the tight end out of Old Dominion, who transferred from Penn State.
What else is left at tight end?
Davis Allen from Clemson, Josh Wiley from Cincinnati, Payne Durham from Purdue, Will Mallory from Miami,
maybe
Brenton Strange from Penn State.
So all the interest, okay. I just wanted to make sure like Kraft wasn't there, but of course Tucker.
No,
he's okay. I'm interested in considering Zach Kuntz right here, betting on traits.
As am I. I like that idea, and I also like some of the running backs. I do, man. Like I think Zach Evans. I know he's had like a peculiar path through college football.
Out on Evans personally.
You're out on Zach Evans. Okay. Sean Tucker, Deuce Vaughn, Chase Brown, Keaton Mitchell, Eric Gray, who I'm very interested in as a one-cut type of running back, who's just kind of difficult to tackle.
Okay.
And then Israel Abanikanda and Kenny McIntosh, and then Evan Hall, who is
I like just Evan Hall a lot.
Evan Hall is just not sexy, I feel like, but he's just good. You know, same with Mo Ibrahim. He's just good. They're just good freaking running backs.
They're just good running backs. There's still a lot of talent I like left at running back, though. Less than I expected at this point. I thought we might get a chance at Kendry Miller here, which we did not. That would have been a slam dunk pick for me. Deuce Vaughn is the running back that I think I would lean toward here. Sean Tucker, I do like Sean Tucker a lot, but with a medical history that he has, and the fact that he's definitely going to be better in like a one-cut zone scheme. If you watch him play, dude, Sean Tucker is not the type of dude that's like juking and planting and making people miss. He's just planting that foot and getting the hell up vertically, and he gets low and he runs hard. I like a lot of that. That style is nice. I just don't love the fit. Deuce Vaughn, to me, does a little bit of the Tajay Spears thing for me, Nick, in the sense of, can he get lost behind that offensive line? Yes. Is that a great thing for me? Yes, it is, because people just don't know where he is, this dude. And then next thing you know, he's bursting through a crease that he only found because he's so small. It actually, to me, like when I see these dudes, I almost sometimes think the smaller dudes, it actually works in their favor. It certainly was the case for Maurice Jones-Drew. It certainly was the case for a few other players, Darren Sproles, obviously, and players like that as far as running the ball. And I know he's more of a space back, Deuce Vaughn, but we need space back too. So I want to throw Vaughn in the mix.
I'm looking at some of these wide receivers, man, and we probably get him at 128. But Charlie Jones, and remember, if anybody's looking on YouTube, Jonathan Mingo, we have eliminated. We're not going to pick him here. I think it's unfair. Yeah, Trey Palmer, and then Xavier Hutchinson, who I just think is a Giants type of player. I just think if there's a wide receiver they're interested in, like I wanted to tweet this out, but I'll just say it here. You remember when Joe Shane, Brandon Beane, when they were talking about the 40-yard dash time of Gabriel Davis, and they're like, "Good, he ran slow. That's good. You know, we can get him a little later." I think Xavier Hutchinson might be that player for them, who did not run the fastest 40, and he's not a burner on tape, but he's just somebody who, to me, knows how to run routes and knows how to uncover and knows how to create separation, despite the fact that he might not be the most athletic type of player. And he's in a bigger body as well. So that's like my day 3. I think the Giants are going to be interested in this wide receiver pick.
I'm going to have to watch him, Nick. The process is long. The process is hard, but more importantly, than I've talked about this with you off pod, we're one-man scouting teams here, each of us. So you're not, like, just the idea that we could ever watch 200 players in a span of 2 or 3 months is impossible. He's a player who I just totally haven't had any chance to watch at all, Xavier Hutchinson. So Now I'll have to, obviously, based on what you said, that you feel like he could be a fit for the Giants. They might draft him. But for right now, for me, if I'm looking at wide receiver, Charlie Jones would be the top of my board and in consideration over a player like Hutchinson, just because I haven't seen Hutchinson.
I'm right there with you, and I like Charlie Jones a lot, and I could be talked into liking him over Xavier Hutchinson. I mean, my grades with them are very, very close.
Okay.
But Charlie Jones, you just throw the football in his general vicinity, and he's going to find a way to come down with it. And he's shown that all throughout his tape, right? So I'm
and
cool.
It's the release package too with Charlie Jones, man. I mean, like to have that kind of release package already, very important.
Floor too, man. Like, what's the worst? He's not going to just bust because he'll be a reliable punt and kick returner for you.
Can't bust. He can't bust. And he could be a reliable slot, honestly, right away.
Yeah, and we're sitting here on day 3 right now. We're in the 4th round. I'm okay with going in that direction and getting a different type of wide receiver than Marvin Mims.
Yeah, I would be good with Charlie Jones. I would be good with either of those interior offensive linemen, Braden Daniels or the kid from Clemson, McFadden. And I would be good with Deuce Vaughn. That's where I'm at right now.
I think, and I haven't seen much of him, I think I'm going to go with Braden Daniels if that's the direction you want to go in, based on everything I've heard.
Okay.
And I have not seen enough Utah offense, but I like what I've heard about this player. So I'm going to do that. All right.
Yeah.
Braden Daniels
for me, it's a player I'm extremely high on. I think there's a ton of upside with Braden Daniels.
Okay, so Riley Moss went off the board the very next pick, so Jacksonville is happy about that. But now that we're sitting here at 128, we don't pick until 160. So we could look to add Charlie Jones. That's very Big Blue Banter. That would be the Big Blue Panther pick. Running backs, though, they're still available. I think there's enough running back depth here to make me feel comfortable enough to forego that and just go with Charlie Jones and add a smart, tough, undersized, but just nuanced wide receiver who had a ton of success at Purdue.
I'm definitely down. To me, right now, he's by far and away the best player on the board by a good amount. It's everything you said, and then it's also, I mean, people say he's not going to be able to do it at the NFL level. Maybe, I don't know, but this dude had pretty good technique when it came to the vertical route tree, too. I liked how he stacked the corners and got on top of them. And then also on balls that were thrown on the vertical plane that were behind him or away from his frame or underthrown. This dude like comes back to the football, attacks it in the air, and then mosses people at 5'11". Like there is nothing really wrong with his game outside of his size and his straight line speed. And the straight line speed looks better on film than it does test time anyway. So size to me isn't even that big of an issue when we're considering players like Jordan Addison in round 1 or Zay Flowers in round 1. You know, like Marvin, like Jalen Hyatt. Like how important is size then? So yeah, let's do it. I think this is the best value play by far here, Charlie Jones.
We're doing it. Charlie Jones, you are New York Giant.
I really like dropping all this draft has fallen for us, Nick.
It's going well. It's going well. And there's been some adversity, but I feel like we're doing a solid job overcoming it. So now we're at pick 160. Chase Brown and Keaton Mitchell are both still around, which I like because both of them are different types of running backs. I think if you want to add Keaton Mitchell, who complement Saquon Barkley, well, Keaton Mitchell is from ECU. Chase Brown is from Illinois. Chase Brown, I feel like would be he could start if Saquon Barkley does not come back as a New York Giant next season. I think he has that type of upside. Might not be the most spectacular type of athlete like a Keaton Mitchell, but definitely somebody who has the upside to be a 3-down starter. So I think that's definitely at this point of the draft should be in consideration. You can opine on that while I look around the rest of the board.
Let's see corner because we only have one corner and safety. Let's take a look at just secondary players because we haven't really done a great job. It's the one thing I feel like we've neglected a bit. We can't always hit everything in every class. So I want to see if there's any opportunity for us to take any kind of bet on traits player at corner or safety.
Bet on traits, I'm not sure about, but there's a pretty solid player from Northwestern here, Cameron Mitchell. Do we really want to draft 2 Northwestern defenders?
No.
I don't know. But Cameron Mitchell, to me, he's a good coverage cornerback. I did not love his click and close and his burst out of his breaks. I thought that there was just a little bit of a hitch when he was doing that specific role. But other than that, at this point of the draft, I feel like he is somebody who can come in and give you valuable snaps. That's one name that kind of sticks out to me. I've heard a lot of great things about Jay Ward, who's listed as a corner here. He's more of a safety out of LSU. I haven't seen him too extensively, but I have heard good things about him. So those, and then Daniel Scott, who is the freakish type of athlete, kind of reminds me of Troy Apke from who Washington drafted. I don't even know how long ago. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of like what year that was. It was probably
not
longer
long ago. That was just a total disaster pick. I mean, everyone who watched Penn State was like, "This dude is horrible." It's just like, all right, he tested great at the combine. Now let's draft him. Yeah, I don't love what I hear there. You have safety and corner you're looking at in that?
I do.
Man,
Yes, I do.
let's
It's
get
not
out
a
of here.
great
Let's get out of
situation.
here.
Yeah. Let's look for good value here,
I
Dan.
need value.
Remember,
I can't just force.
yeah, running back is still that one that I'm like, we could get a really good guy here, right?
We could.
If
It's
I'm
probably our best bet from a value standpoint. Let's just see. Is there any off-ball linebackers we should consider? We haven't gone in that direction at all yet in this draft.
yeah, so they have the really freak fast guy, Owen Papau, I think is how you say it, the kid from Auburn, who went down to the Senior Bowl and was just really fast. Muhammad Dibiati out of Utah. Love saying his last name. He's kind of one of those raw, just athletes running around out there. D. Winters, undersized player who's very good at penetrating defenses. Sai talked about him a decent amount. And then Ventrell Miller out of Florida, another really quick type of linebacker who could have some upside. I'm scrolling down a little bit more. I know Jeremy Banks is somebody a lot of people have talked about out of Tennessee. Shaka Hayward, we talked about him a couple podcasts ago out of Duke, but that's somebody I feel like you can get a little bit later on. It's Ventrell Miller, the one player that I'm looking at, and I'm like, could you be a pressure type of linebacker in Wink Martindale's scheme?
Maybe. Do we want to take that luxury over a sure bet at running back? I don't know. I think I would go back toward running back, and I think we can take a running back here.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to. I'm gonna look one more time at tight ends. Payne Durham is still around.
Yeah. Who's there?
Payne Durham is still around.
Ooh, I like Payne Durham.
I think honestly, who do you like better? Chase Brown or Eric Gray?
That's a great question. So I think from what I've seen of both, Gray is right now the better runner on tape. But again, that's college level running against college level talent with college level offensive lines. Projection wise, I like Chase Brown more. It's the vertical, it's the broad jumps, crazy on both, shows off the explosiveness that I think is there. And then when you watch Brown, you expect this to be just an athlete only type of prospect, but he actually has some good moments on tape, I feel like. And he's not a bad runner already. Like, he's already a weapon there. And just one final anecdotal thing. My boy Ian Gold, who used to write about Illinois and write for Illinois, loves Chase Brown out of this class. He's one of his favorite players out of all those guys who might get drafted. So I would lean Chase Brown there. I got to be honest with you, though. I really like Evan Hall. So I would actually throw him into the mix. I know we don't have to take him here, and there's nothing flashy about his game, but Evan Hall also intrigues me. But I want to bet on traits. I want to bet on upside here always. So I am going to lean toward Chase Brown.
Okay, I'm right there with you. I haven't seen a lot of Illinois' offense. I've watched a lot of Illinois' defense, but I'm going to go with Chase Brown as well. I also liked what he was able to do down at the Senior Bowl. So we will add Chase Brown to the New York Giants. And now we're going to be picking at 172. So Keaton Mitchell and Eric Gray are both still around. We could get a developmental quarterback like a Jake Haener. We could see if DTR is still around. And if he is, he's not. Malik Cunningham is, though. Aiden O'Connell is. And so is Stetson Bennett, Jared Hall. All of those players are still around. I wish there was more safeties and corners that I would feel comfortable with.
I know. We really need to address secondary here if we can. Do we have any bet on traits, guys?
Bet on traits, guys? I mean, I'm going to try to pull them up right now. Looking over some of these guys, I mean, Nick Jay Ward is still here. It's somebody I've heard great things about. Kai Gardner from that same school, a little bit more of a corner, I believe. Jamari Connor, I didn't really love just how bad he was at tackling, which is something I feel like I've said a lot about the safeties in this class, which is funny because the two safeties I love are both really, really good at tackling. So maybe I'm just a stickler for fundamentals. I'm willing to roll the dice on Jay Ward. Let me look a little bit into him right here. I've heard people I respect talk about him. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've watched the film on him.
Yeah, I haven't watched him either.
But I have heard good things, and I've heard that he's somewhat versatile. And we're at that point of the draft where I think we could explore adding a player like that.
I think it's a good move. If you like the versatility, if there's a chance he can play multiple positions in this defense, let's take a flyer on Jay Ward here.
Jay Ward, you are a New York Giant. Okay. Now we're going to be picking at 209. So we're going to be reaching. And Nick Anderson will more than likely be one of these picks because I just like his game a lot. I wouldn't be shocked if we go with another running back.
Is Hampton still on the board, or is he off the board?
Oh, yes. the
I
Appalachian
would
State
love
kid.
to add him if he's still on the board. I would have liked to
Yeah,
add him in the last pick, actually.
yeah. I don't see him. I see Robert Beal, the kid from Georgia who played opposite
We
of
love
Nolan
Hampton.
Smith.
We didn't think of that one early enough.
No, we didn't. This is why we're getting fired after this draft,
That's
man.
your
We're gonna
boy, too. That's your boy.
27.
You loved him, and you put him on the players that you had higher consensus. Then I started listening to some other people I like who love him, and now I love Nick Hampton because I started watching a little bit. I'm just like, traits are there. You could see the path for him to potentially be a pass rusher at the NFL level. So we don't get him here, though.
Dan, do you hear that phone?
Yes. What is that?
That phone call. That's Dave Gettleman, and he's calling in, and he's gonna
Okay.
make a good pitch for an interior defensive lineman. And you know what? I'm a little bit interested. I'm a little bit interested in possibly hearing his synopsis on DJ Dale, who is a big-bodied interior defensive lineman from the University of Alabama. 302-pound, anchors down, low leverage, 6'1" type of player, 6'1", 6'2", something like that, right? And when I was watching Brian Branch, I a couple times was like, who the hell is that right there? Is that Byron Young? And it wasn't Byron Young. It was DJ Dale. And we're sitting here in the 7th round. And we just want a 2-down player who can anchor in place and eat 2-gap, or who can 2-gap and eat double teams. I think DJ Dale is a player that we can look to explore. We can also look around, but we have several picks here in the 7th round.
Okay. I can be convinced on that. I like the idea of adding more interior talent to this defense, especially if you're thinking Adebawore for us, our first pick might play a little edge for us, might play a little interior, kind of mix around. I like that. Dave has a few more notes from the back, so let's hear him, Dave. Listen, you gotta get a guy. You gotta get a guy who played at Alabama. You gotta get a guy who played at Alabama. You know they're teaching him right down there. You know, you got to get a guy from Alabama, SEC. I always take SEC. You got to take SEC. All right, Dave, you made their pitch. Now calm down back there, Dave. Calm down. What's that? Uh-oh. They're escorting Dave out of the building. Joe Shane did not like his whole rant about Kyle Rudolph, how he wants to re-sign him now. He's back on the market. I think he was talking, or he really went off the rails when he said Alec Ogletree still has a little bit left on him, and we didn't get an off-ball linebacker in this class. If you move Alec Ogletree, you don't make him play the mic. Alec Ogletree can still provide value for your defense. Jonathan Stewart, he didn't like the Chase Brown pick. Thinks Jonathan Stewart still has a little bit left in him. So no, Dave, you're going to have to get escorted out. Sorry. I'm sorry to tell you. Dave Gettleman is no longer here, Nick. He's no longer here. Let me adjust the screen.
You're definitely having you're getting all of the Dave Gettleman hate out today. Look, you're back in Giant Stadium. Look at that.
Yep. I returned to Giant Stadium. I will call you in for these last picks.
I'm going to go with, I think I'm cool with going with DJ Dale. Like, this is just going to be a rotational player behind Nacho.
Can I ask you one player who might be here, Nick? And if not here, maybe we missed a chance at him. He's got no hype. The corner from Alabama, Eli Ricks, I believe.
Yeah, he's gone. Eli Ricks.
Okay, long gone. I kind of like his profile. Just a lot of injuries, former 5-star.
The thing about Ricks is, like, he just fell down too much on tape, and I don't really know why. Because he does have that kind of fluidity. At least you would imagine, right? He's a good athlete. I don't know if he was 5-star, but he played at Alabama, I feel like, forever. And I just see him on the ground when I'm watching, like, Brian Branch and Jordan Battle, and I'm like, come on, bro. Him and Helms. Helms is just like, I watched the Tennessee game, and I'm like, oh, my God, dude. Like, Jalen Hyatt just murdered this dude. Like, this sucks. But if I'm going with an Alabama defender here, we haven't addressed the interior defensive line other than Adebawore, which is more of an edge. I'm going to go with DJ Dale.
That's the one thing I will say. Make that pick. I'm fine with it. We have a very different opinion, and as scouts in the room, in our war room, of what we're going to eventually do with Adebawore. I like him much better on the interior than you do, and you obviously like him more as an edge. So I'm going to be intrigued to see.
I wouldn't say that. I like him on the interior, but I like him situationally. Okay. I like him. You can put him on the edge, but you can put him in the interior.
Okay. I thought you said you view him as more of an edge. The only thing is, I think he can play both too, especially in this defense. But I do like the idea of getting a more like you said, this is more of a run stopping type of interior defensive lineman.
Yes. So now I'm scrolling to see who was selected, and we might have got sniped for somebody that we did. We got sniped for somebody that I just thought was going to be around because your
boy from Tulane.
No, John Gaines. I was just like,
We
waiting.
missed Gaines. We could have had. Well, I mean, we already took Braden Daniels. I don't know how many interior offense. We can't take 3 interior offense linemen in a draft.
Yeah, I guess so. So now we are sitting here looking at all the guys who are available. We're looking at dudes who may not make the team.
Is this our last pick?
No, we have 3 more picks, bro.
Oh God.
Yes. One of them will be Nick Anderson because I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm gonna say. Pound the table for your boy. I got
Yeah.
2 more picks to make before that, though. Okay.
Yeah. Carrington Valentine is still around. Somebody I've heard Cy talk about, just a long developmental cornerback. Jerome Henderson, we speak highly of him. I'm willing to entertain that one.
Done.
Done.
I gotta be honest with you at this point, Nick. I'm the GM. I'm the scout who everyone's concerned about. They wonder if he's taking his job as seriously because he somehow doesn't know these back end players that well. I do. Dan Schneider does not know 200 ranked players in his draft class. I'm just going to be honest with the listeners. If you thought that somehow within two or 3 months I could learn about 250 prospects, well, God bless you for thinking I'm that kind of person who had any way of potentially doing that. But for most of the season, Nick and I are watching Giants film, not draft prospects. So we had a 2-3 month period to catch up. This is not a guy I watched.
No, I mean, he doesn't have the best ball skills. He's definitely aggressive. He's long, but he's somebody that has, it seems like, due to his build, his athletic capabilities, he has traits. And at this point in the draft, let's plug that in. Let's draft him.
Good. I like the traits. I like the length. I like adding.
I want to go with another wide receiver who's around, but we've already went with 2 wide receivers. But Yoshivas is still around, and since he's a Princeton guy, even though he's from Hawaii, you want to go with you want to go with Andre Yoshivas?
A, the Giants have shown a lot of interest in him. B, Tony Pauline says they like him. C, I love the size speed profile there with Yoshivas, and he played at Princeton. And I have a little bit of a insight from former Big Blue Band podcast co-host Nick Turchin, who now works on the Princeton staff, and says that kid is a really good kid, really hard worker, and is going to be that smart, tough, dependable that you want. And that's what they're going for here. And he has athletic upside with size and speed. So, I love that he was still on the board. I don't care how many receivers we have. I'll take that kind of talent gamble over a lot of floor type D linemen or corners here or whatever.
I don't even know if Nick Anderson is in the system for the draft. He's not available, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't been selected. And there's some linebackers
he's ranked
here that
455 on the consensus mock board.
Yeah, see, I think here we can go with linebackers that I even like better from what I've seen, which would be like Shaka Hayward. The little bit I've seen of him, he's a player, and the least he's going to be a really good special teamer. So Shaka is still around. I'll look around a little bit though, but still got Shaka. Tavius Robinson from Mississippi is another player that I've heard some solid things about. I've watched Robert Beal Jr., the edge from Georgia, just because I watched the crap load of Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, and I feel like he's a player who could earn snaps on a defense like a Timon Fox. Maybe he's not as good against the run. He's not a terrible athlete. Yeah, he's 6'4", 247 pounds, 23-year-old senior, but I think he could be in consideration, and we could just bookend our draft with edge or defensive lineman, Dan, which would also appease Dave Gettleman if we're going to consider Adebawore a defensive lineman. So we can go with Shaka or we can go with Beal. What are you thinking?
Shaka. Duke player. Love the name. Yeah. Heard you talk about him before. Don't know anything about the other guys. So going with Shaka.
All right, let's see what our draft is. Oh, man, they hated the Braden Daniels pick, but it's okay.
No.
We got a B.
We got a B. I like that.
But you know what I don't love about this? There's not a lot of faces. Like, no face for Adebawore, no face for Julius Brents, no face for Braden Daniels. No, yeah, exactly. Figure it out, PFF.
Well, let's go over our draft again for those who can't see. It's a little further away. So let's just rerun us through the picks, Nick.
Yeah, so we have at pick 32 after a trade down, Adetomiwa Adebawore, the edge defensive lineman from Northwestern. And then John Michael Schmitz at 49. We got 49 in a trade. We love that pick. Julius Brents from Kansas State traded back again, got pick 94. Marvin Mims from Oklahoma. So we have an edge, a center, a cornerback, and a wide receiver. And then we drafted tackle, but we're going to kick him inside. Braden Daniels out of Utah projects good to be maybe a right guard. Charlie Jones out of Purdue.
Play tackle for us if we need him to, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the versatility aspect of this.
Right.
So now we have 2 offensive linemen and we're getting 2 wide receivers because we doubled down and drafted Charlie Jones, a completely different type of wide receiver out of Purdue, different from Marvin Mims. Then we got our halfback, Chase Brown. I feel like somebody who could maybe be the heir apparent to Saquon Barkley if the Giants can't figure out that contract situation. At pick 160, 172, we went with Jay Ward to add more depth to our cornerback and secondary room because he can also play safety. DJ Dale, we needed to add an interior defensive lineman, more of a nose type of player, low leverage, low hat. It got a D. PFF did not love it. I don't care. That was at pick 209. Carrington Valentine at 240, so another developmental corner who can possibly project on the outside if they can hone in on his traits and kind of make him be a more disciplined player. Andre Yoshivas, the wide receiver out of Princeton, size, speed. PFF love this pick. This is at pick 243. If you can develop him, you might be looking at a wide receiver core in 3 years of Wan'Dale Robinson, Marvin Mims, Charlie Jones, Andre Yoshivas, and whoever the hell else they draft in next year's draft. And then Shaka Hayward to round the draft out, who's a linebacker at a Duke, could be a good special teamer, smart type of dude.
I like this draft. I really do.
Solid.
Yeah, I'm happy with this draft. It's more than solid for me. Marvin Mims is star type value play. Charlie Jones, I feel the same way. I'm so happy we got Braden Daniels. I think there's so much upside there to develop him on the interior. And then in between those, John Michael Schmitz, we still get a lot of people want him in round 1. We get him at 49. And now we have a much better center situation immediately than we were going to have. And then we still have a couple gamble. I like that fact that we late round gambled at corner in addition to getting a Julius Brents.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it too. Sorry, I was drinking my water.
Dan, sometimes you got to take drinks of water.
Dan wasn't looking at the screen, I guess, because I was hoping you were going to talk a little bit longer.
I was staring at the mock draft. Let's wrap this thing up, Nick, by reading a few more mock drafts that came into us via iTunes. Remember, if you want your mock draft read, you're running out of time, but you still may get it read. Submit it to iTunes. Leave a rating, 5 stars. If you don't leave 5 stars, your mock will not be read. I don't make the rules up. Oh, yes, I do make the rules. Those are the rules. So leave us 5-star right in your mock, and we'll read it and we'll grade it. I think we left off on this one, Nick. This is from Official Mike on 414. And I don't think we read this, but if we did, I apologize. I really don't think we did. He has us taking, he says, I've been here for 1.5 years and I'll never go back. That sounds great to me. Sounds like you like us. Jalen Hyatt, 25 overall, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Nick and I actually passed on him in our mock twice at 49 and 57. Emmanuel Forbes at 57. Luke Whippler at 89. Tajay Spears at 128. Yaya Diaby, 168. Payne Durham, 172. Adrian Martinez. Is that who I think it is? Adrian Martinez?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God.
He's still around.
19th-year senior.
Yes, he's still around.
How is he finally making it to the NFL draft?
I have no idea.
Has literally no chance of making it in the NFL. Literally no chance, in my opinion.
I hope he does now.
No, I hope he does now too, just because that was a ridiculous statement by me to say anyone has literally no chance. Javon Hicks, Charlie Thomas, Elijah Higgins. I love the Elijah Higgins pick at 240. What's your grade for this mock and your analysis?
Yeah, so for those who don't, Javion Hicks, or it might just be Javon Hicks, is a safety out of Cincinnati. And then Charlie Thomas is also somebody that we have not covered at all in this draft. He is, I think he's the linebacker out of Georgia Tech. But anyways, so you have a linebacker out of Georgia Tech and then a safety out of Cincinnati. So just add more depth to those positions, can help on special teams. I like this draft. I don't love Jalen Hyatt, though, at 25. I just think it's a little bit rich for me. Love Emmanuel Forbes at 57. I think Whippler at 89 is fine. Tajay Spears at 128. It's a popular one. Yaya Diaby at 160. I think that's really good value with high upside. Payne Durham, good tight end 3 at 172. Adrian Martinez at 209. Dan absolutely loves that. He loves his Big Ten quarterbacks. So what school is he coming out of now? Because I know he was in Nebraska for a while. And then I think he transferred to I remember I saw him
in Nebraska last year.
No, he did not. He transferred away from Nebraska and he went to Kansas State. I knew it was a Big 12.
Old is he? Can you type in Adrian Martinez's age for me real quick?
Yeah, he's 23. He's 23.
What?
Yeah.
How is he 23 years old? I think you know what's confusing me right now, Nick? I think he had a brother who also played quarterback or something. There had to be another.
He was a freshman All-American. So he killed it at Nebraska in his freshman season, which was in 2018. 2019 wasn't as good. And then 2020 was kind of a COVID shortened year, but he didn't really do anything. And then 2021 also wasn't that great, but he was honorable mention all Big Ten, which says a lot about the freaking Big Ten and their quarterbacks. In 2022, he went to Kansas State as a grad transfer and only had 6 touchdown passes with 1 interception. So it was a little bit like, I think, a bit role of what he was doing. That or Kansas State also runs like a very run-heavy Deuce Vaughn-led type of scheme. But I think overall here, I don't know much about Hicks and Thomas. I do like Elijah Higgins at that point in the draft. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to use him as a wide receiver, or is he going to be an H-back because he's like 200,
True.
35 pounds or whatever the hell he is, a big-ass wide receiver. So I'm going to go with a B just because I didn't love the Jalen Hyatt pick, but I like some of these picks after that. I think there's solid value there.
Yeah, it's a B for me as well. Jalen Hyatt, I see the path. I get it. He's smooth. He accelerates. All the things that I'm worried about might end up not mattering. But we don't know that yet. And so I'm not going to want to take that gamble at 25 because until I know it, I feel less certain about that type of valuation, with the 25th overall pick. Love 57 Emmanuel Forbes. Luke Whippler at 89. I'm not as huge on Whippler as others. I think once you get to that level of center, there's just, again, we're talking about the Matt Hennessy types of the world. Nick loves when I bring him up. So I remember so many Giants fans.
That's better than Matt Hennessy, though. Like,
he's better than Matt Hennessy. Agreed.
Yeah.
But you got to be so much better to me than a Matt Hennessy type to make any kind of impact in the NFL at center. I just have a high bar for what centers actually do. Like, how good did Nick Gates look? Like Nick Gates, John Feliciano, these guys look pretty good. There's no sacks given up, no pressures. But were they really that great? And how hard is it to find those guys? I don't know. I really don't think it's that hard to find those guys at all, personally, if you just have a good coach. But with that said, Luke Whippler has good athletic testing, which I didn't totally see on the tape that I watched, but okay. Tajay Spears, love at value at 128. We've talked a bunch about him. Yaya Diaby is the type of traits gamble I would make at 168, so I like that too. Payne Durham I like as well, and we talked about Higgins, so it's a solid B for me.
Don't you wish the Giants just went with Creed Humphrey in pick back in 2021 instead of Kadarius Toney?
I do wish that we did that, and it's sad that we did not, but here we are today. And we're going to do another mock here because we need to get to a lot, and we are running out of shows to get to them. This one comes from Thor Savage 87. Love the work you guys do. I appreciate the hard work, professionalism, and dedication to putting out consistently awesome content. I learn a lot about you and appreciate your insight about the Giants. Thank you, Thor. I really appreciate that from you, buddy. All right, here's my 2023 mock. At 125, Deonte Banks falls to us. Love it. Traded down from 57 to 60 with the Bengals, picked up a 2024 fourth. Okay. Marvin Mims at 60. We just took him in our mock at 89, or 90 something, 94, but I'm like him at 62, to be honest. Joe Tippmann, 89. Obviously, I like that. Jaquan Roy, I don't know how to pronounce his first name. I never have, from LSU, the D tackle, 128. KJ Henry, explosive edge. Clemson, 160, bet on traits guy. Roschon Johnson, 172. I love that. Running back out of Texas. Gervarius Owens, the safety out of Houston. And then Spencer Anderson, the center out of Maryland. Bumper Pool, who just everyone loves taking Bumper Pool based on name, out of Arkansas. And then Matt Landers, who that's an intriguing one at wide receiver, bet on traits at the very end of the draft.
Yeah, Landers, big body guy. I believe he was a transfer, one of the really good schools, either Alabama or Georgia. So he was a transfer, but I like that pick at 254 because maybe you can find some lightning out of that one. Deonte Banks, that's a home run. Marvin Mims, love it at 60. Joe Tippmann at 89. Those are really, that's great 1, 2, 3 right there for the New York Giants if that actually happened. Jaquan Roy, look, he's not the most consistent player, but I do think there's traits there that can be developed, and you're getting him in the fourth round. I think that's a solid spot for him at that point, right? Would not want to add him before that. KJ Henry, that's somebody who keeps popping up in these mock drafts, and I have not focused in on him quite yet, but I know I believe he actually led Clemson in pressures, which says something at least. Wow. Roschon Johnson, freaking love that. He could be a 3-down back. There's good blocker, can receive the football when asked to, just backed up Bijan Robinson, so he didn't have that full-time role. So I love Roschon. I don't really have anything on Owens or Anderson. Bumper Pool, I actually watched. I think he's like that team captain type of player down at Arkansas. Played next to Drew Sanders, but just a limited type of athlete who will have to carve out a role on special teams. And then I already talked about Landers, just kind of adding those Arkansas guys right there at the back end of the draft. Love it, man.
I would give this Bumper Pool's the kind of guy, Nick, that if he added a neck roll to his whole thing, I think he'd have a longer career in the NFL. It would extend his career in the NFL.
About a decade, yeah.
You get that? All right, good. All right, I'm giving this an A. This is a pure A for me. Deonte Banks is one of my dream picks at 25. Banks or Porter is what I'm just praying somehow happens on Thursday night. Marvin Mims, some people might think that's early. I don't. I like him a lot at 60. I think a case can be made. He's a more complete receiver than Hyatt, and he offers the same thing. Joe Tippmann at 89, I love. Roshan Johnson at 172. I love. Those are all A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus. Oh, Mims at 6. He's probably more A, but A plus and 1 and 3, and then 5 with Roshan. And then some of the other things you did I like too. So this is an A for me.
It's an A for me as well.
Great. All right. That's all we have for today on the Big Blue Banter podcast. Keep it locked and loaded. The draft is officially a week away from now, but you'll be hearing this and who knows when. Here I am at Giant Stadium. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.